Hello, math students. Today we are going to look at finding the area of compound shapes. You might also hear these called composite shapes. This just means that these are complicated or complex shapes that are made up from a bunch of different shapes that we do know how to find the area. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I have scrap paper today. It's really difficult to do today's work in your head just because there's so many pieces and it's so based on these pictures that you kind of have to force yourself to draw these pictures today. So grab your scrap paper and make sure you're ready. The first thing I recommend always is to write down the formulas that we know. So even though I don't see shapes that I'm familiar with yet, I'm going to write my formulas up top. So I know that the area of a rectangle or another parallelogram is area equals base times height, and I stuck those together. The other formula we need to remember today is the formula for the area of a triangle. And the area of a triangle, area equals 1/2 of the base times the height. So if we remember those areas of triangles, it's just like a rectangle or a parallelogram, but we have to remember to cut them in half because triangles are just like rectangles or parallelograms that we've sliced into two pieces or divided by two. Okay, so there's my formulas. I'm ready to go. So the first step that you need to do to find the compound shape area is you have to break the compound or the composite or the complex shape into shapes that you do recognize, simpler shapes. So I recommend using a dotted line for this. So I've got a couple options. So for this one, I could draw a line there, and then what I notice is I've got two rectangles. I can find the area of those. The other option I'd recommend for this is drawing a dotted line here, and again, I see that I've broken it into two rectangles. These are just different ones than the first option. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my first option. Okay, I like the first option, so I'm going to draw my dotted line here. If you draw your dotted line in a different place, it's totally fine, and as long as you use the correct measurements, you're still going to find the area that is the same. I'm going to use different colors for this because I think color coding is also a helpful strategy. So I'm going to start choosing the measurements that I need for these shapes. So if I look at this shape over here, the base, or the part that's resting on my table, it's not this full 12 because if you notice, I've chopped this off. So this base measurement, I'm going to highlight it in blue. Although I don't see it down here, I actually can find it up here because that's the same distance as this. So I know that my base is 4 meters. And then if I'm looking at my height is over here, and this is the 10 meters that I have on the side. So I'm going to call this shape A, and down here I'm going to label it shape A. So shape A, area equals base times height. So I'm going to do the base, which is 4. And the height, which is 10. And I know that 4 times 10 is 40 meters squared, or square meters. So I have found the area of part of my shape. I'm going to switch colors here. I'm going to go green for this. So over here I have the next shape, and I need to find these measurements as well. This one is trickier. That's why I saved it for the second step. So over here I have a base. I have a little bit of math to do here because I do not see the measurement for this. I see a 12 for the full distance, but I don't see the measurement for this small distance. Now, if 12 is the full length, I know that this piece left over is going to be a 12 minus this 4 on this side that I already used. So if I do the full 12, minus the 4 that's gone and used, 12 minus 4 means that this must have been 8 meters. And a way to check that is you can put the sides back together. If I put this 8 back together with this 4, it's going to give me the full distance of the shape, which is 12. So I like 8 meters here for my first measurement that I'm going to need. Next, I need to find the height, and again, I don't see the height, but I can use the numbers that I see other places. If the full height of the shape was 10 meters, and I'm not needing these 3 meters, 10 minus 3 should give me this missing piece, which is 7 meters. Okay, and again, let's just check. So if I put this shorter side of 7 meters and I stack it with this 3 meters, 7 plus 3 would add up to my full height of 10. Now that I have what I need, I'm going to call this shape B. So I'm going to say B equals base times height, so 8 times 7, which is 56 meters squared. So I've now found both pieces that I need, and if I want the area of the whole shape, what would I do to those pieces? Of course, I would add them together. So I'm going to grab my final color, and I'm going to add these two areas together. So 0 and 6 is 6, 4 and 5 is 9, and it's meters squared or square meters, and I would circle that. So there's my final answer, 96 meters squared for that shape. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for the other shape. So if you notice, we've got some different slanted sides. So this one we had two nice rectangles. It was pretty simple and easy. This one we're going to have a few more steps to do. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to break this down into shapes that I recognize. So I noticed that I've already seen this triangle shape over here. Notice I've got this dotted line in the middle. That doesn't mean that I have to treat this as two triangles. That's just giving me a measurement. Okay, so I'm going to trace over this dotted line here. I like keeping this triangle the same. And then over here, I'm going to draw another dotted line to make another triangle on the side. So now what I've done for myself is I've given myself three shapes. Triangle shape 1. Rectangle in the middle is shape 2. Triangle on the right is shape 3. I'm going to start with my first shape. I'm going to label it A again. Okay, so I'm going to find the area of shape A. Now I've got some choices. What I actually recommend is turning your paper for this one. So if I turn my work, this is where I can find that the base of this triangle is 8. And the height of this triangle going straight is 6. I don't want to use this 7, so I'm going to cross that off. I don't need that. That was a slanted side. So hopefully by turning my page, I showed you that the base is 8 and the height is 6. Now that I know the base times height, I'm going to find the area of shape A. 1/2, because it's a triangle, times the base, which was 8, times the height, which was 6. And since we are multiplying, we can multiply in any order. I like to do the whole numbers first. So I like to do 8 times 6, which is 48, and then I'm going to cut it in half. And I know that half of 48 is 24. And these are centimeters squared. So I found the area of shape A. Next, I'm going to do the area of shape B. So I'm going to call this rectangle shape B. And I noticed that the base of my rectangle is shorter than this original length. So I don't actually want to use this 15. I want to use the 10. Because if you notice, this 15 was for the whole thing, but I've chopped off this part on the right side to use for the triangle. So that's gone. I don't need the 15. I want the actual width now of the rectangle, which is 10. And then the height of the rectangle, I actually already used it over here. It's this 8. It's the same as the base of that triangle. So my height is 8 and my base is 10. So I'm going to do the area of shape B. Base times height, I don't cut this in half because it's not a triangle. So I'm going to do 8 times 10, that was easy, which was 80. And this is centimeters squared. Okay, so I've gotten the second part of my area. So far I've gotten 24 centimeters squared here, 80 centimeters squared here. I've got one final step. I'm going to call this shape C. And I'm going to get it ready down here, shape C. Okay, so this is another triangle. This one's the trickiest one, I think, because if I look over here, I don't initially see any measurements. So first I'm going to look at the base. Now, I don't have a measurement for this base, but I do know that my information has to be somewhere. So what I notice is this full length used to be 15 centimeters, but then I cut some off to use for the rectangle. And if I look above, that means I used 10 of the centimeters over here for the rectangle. So if there's 10 centimeters here, my mystery number over here should add up to 15. I know that this must be 5 centimeters. 10 plus 5 would give me the full length of 15. So I was using the information that I had. So if this is 5 centimeters for the base, I'm going to circle that. My height, I don't see a height here, but I see a height that matches off to the side. If this is 8 centimeters tall over here, of course it's still going to be 8 centimeters tall over here. So I'm going to label that 8 centimeters and circle that. So you can always find your heights and bases and widths somewhere in your picture. You just might have to move your page or be a little bit flexible in your thinking. So now I have the information I need for this triangle. Because it's a triangle, I know that my formula says I'm going to have half times the base, which we found to be 5 centimeters, times the height, which we know is 8 centimeters. 5 times 8 is 40. And then I still have to cut it in half. And I know that half of 40 is 20, and these are centimeters squared. So I've got my 3 pieces. I am going to add it together. So if my first shape was 24, if my next shape was 80, and my third shape down here, we got 20. I'm going to add those up. I know 80 and 20 makes 100. And then if I have 24 more, that's 124 centimeters squared. So there you have finding the area of compound shapes. Now, because this is a new lesson, you might want to rewind this and watch them again. Also, remember, I'm here if you have any questions, and you can just get a hold of me if you need some help. So here's the summary of the steps that we went over today. So the steps to find the compound areas are, number 1, you want to break it into pieces you know. So break it into shapes that you recognize, rectangles, parallelograms, triangles. Break it into pieces you know. Step 2, find any missing side lengths. Some side lengths you know, others you need to find out using the information that you have. Step 3, calculate the areas of the small shapes you created. Don't forget to use those formulas that we've learned. And step number 4, add up the small areas to find the total area of the large compound shape. So there's our lesson on finding the area of compound or composite shapes. I hope that this was helpful for you. Feel free to go back and rewind it and take a look at any of the parts that you need to practice. And good luck, work hard, and let me know if you have any questions.